I had the cashier's check folded inside my old work jacket, the same jacket my son told me was embarrassing to wear in public when I walked into my grandson's graduation party and smiled at everyone like I didn't have a care in the world. Nobody knew. That was the whole point. Let me back up about 18 months, because that's where this really starts. I spent 31 years building a small commercial cleaning company in central Ohio. Nothing glamorous. We cleaned office buildings, medical facilities, a few school districts when the contracts came through. I had 11 employees at the peak, a second-hand truck, and calluses on both hands that never fully went away, even after I stopped doing the floor work myself. My ex-wife left when my son was 12, said she hadn't signed up for a life that smelled like industrial bleach every evening. I can't say she was entirely wrong about the smell. I raised my son the best I could after that, working nights so I could be home when he got off the school bus, eating dinner with him every evening, even when I was so tired I could barely hold a fork. His name is Wade. He's 34 now. Wade grew up fine, by most measurements. Graduated high school, went to community college, got a decent job in logistics management. He married a woman named Kristen about 6 years ago. Nice enough at the wedding. Her parents had money-old money, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself because it's already everywhere. In the way they dressed, and the car they drove, and the quiet way they looked at my truck when I pulled into the venue parking lot. I noticed, but I let it go. People are who they are. The trouble started gradually. It's never sudden, is it? You don't wake up one morning and realize your kid has become a stranger. It happens in small moments that you explain away, one at a time, until there are too many of them to explain anymore. The first time I really felt it was Thanksgiving, 2 years after the wedding. I drove 3 hours to their house. They'd moved to a suburb of Columbus by then, nice neighborhood, new construction. And I brought a sweet potato casserole and a bottle of decent wine. Wade met me at the door and looked at the casserole dish like it was an artifact from another century. Kristen smiled her tight smile and put it in the refrigerator. It came out at the end of the meal, after everything else, and no one touched it. Small thing. I let it go. Then there was the Christmas where Wade called me 2 days before to let me know they were spending the holiday with Kristen's family in Hilton Head. First I'd heard of it. I'd already bought gifts. Already driven to the grocery store for the particular brand of coffee Wade liked. Already assumed I would see my son on Christmas Day. I sat in my living room that night with the television off, just sitting in the quiet, and I thought, when's the last time he called, just to check in? When's the last time he asked how my knee was doing after the surgery? When's the last time he seemed happy, genuinely, warmly happy to hear my voice? I couldn't remember. I kept working, kept building. In year 28 of the business, I got approached by a regional facilities management group out of Cincinnati. They wanted to acquire my client list and equipment. I'd had nibbles before and turned them down. This time, I listened. We went back and forth for about 9 months. My attorney, a sharp woman I'd worked with for years, told me to let the process breathe and not show eagerness. I'm not a naturally patient man, but I trusted her. I was 61 years old. My right knee had been replaced. I had a lower back that reminded me every morning it had been carrying heavy equipment since I was 29. The offer on the table, after taxes and fees, was going to be just over $9 million. $9 million and change. I signed the papers on a Thursday afternoon in March. My attorney shook my hand in the parking lot of her office building and said, "You built something real, and now you get to live the rest of your life." I drove home, ordered a pizza, and watched a basketball game I didn't care about. I didn't call Wade. I want you to understand that wasn't cruelty. It wasn't a calculated scheme, not at first. I looked at my phone and I thought about the Christmas call, about the sweet potato casserole, about the tight smile, and I thought, I want to know who calls me. Not who calls because they heard something through the grapevine, not who calls because they want a piece. I want to know who calls me because they love me. So I waited. Wade called 11 days after the sale closed. Not about the sale. He didn't know about the sale. He called because he needed something. Dad. The way he said it, that particular tone, I already knew before the next sentence. I've been meaning to call. Things have been kind of hectic. It's fine, son. Listen, Kristen and I are planning a big graduation party for Bryce. He's finishing his MBA and we want to do something really special. A venue, catering, the whole thing. Bryce is my grandson, Wade's stepson from Kristen's first marriage. I met him maybe a dozen times. Nice young man. Not really what I'd call close to me, but polite. It's going to run about $12,000, maybe $15,000. That's a nice party, I said. Yeah. We're a little stretched right now with the mortgage refinance and some things Kristen's parents have going on with their estate. I was wondering if you could help out. Maybe $4,000 or $5,000. You've got the business. I know things have been good. There it was. I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment, because it matters. It wasn't pure anger. It was something older and sadder than anger. It was the specific grief of a father who has been patient for a very long time and has just been handed the final piece of evidence he was hoping wouldn't come. He wasn't calling to tell me about the party and invite me. He was calling to ask me to fund the party, and the invitation was implied, assumed, the price of admission into my own son's life. I said, "Let me think about it." "It would really mean a lot, Dad. Kristen's parents are putting in some too, and I want to do right by Bryce." "I hear you. I'll let you know." I sat with it for 2 days. My neighbor, a retired postal worker named Dex, who has been my friend for 20 years, came over Saturday morning for coffee like he always does. I told him the whole thing. Dex is the kind of man who has heard everything and still manages to react like it's the first time, which is part of why I value his friendship. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I haven't decided." "You could just give him the money and go to the party and not say a word." "I could. Or you could tell him about the sale right now and watch what happens." "I could do that too." Dex looked at his coffee cup for a moment. "What do you actually want, though?" I thought about it for a while before I answered. What I wanted was simple and impossible. I wanted my son to call me the way I used to call my own father. Just to talk. Just because talking to him made the day better. I wanted to matter to him, the way he had always mattered to me. I wanted, and I know how this sounds. I know it sounds like something from a greeting card, to be loved without a transaction attached. Since I couldn't have that, I decided on the next best thing. I wanted the truth. Clear and unmistakable and on the record. I told Wade I'd send a check for $3,000. He thanked me with a warmth in his voice that I recognized as relief more than gratitude. I noted the difference. I also wrote the date and the amount in a small notebook I keep in the kitchen drawer. I'd been keeping that notebook for about 4 years by then. Little entries. $200 when the car needed a repair. $400 when the water heater went. $800 for a home appliance I don't want to sound petty listing out. Nothing dramatic in isolation. Together, looking back through those pages, it added up to somewhere around $14,000 over 4 years. $14,000 and a handful of holidays that got cancelled or rescheduled because something came up. The party was planned for a Saturday in late June, at an event space attached to a winery about 40 minutes from their house. I received the invitation, a printed card, formal, the kind that costs money in the mail about 3 weeks out. My name was on it. I was invited. I RSVP'd, yes. I didn't say how I was getting there or what I was wearing. I didn't ask any questions. I just marked the little card and sent it back. The morning of the party, I put on a clean pair of slacks and the button-down shirt. Navy blue, pressed. Nothing wrong with it. I bought it a couple of years back for a work dinner. Good shirt. Not fancy, but appropriate. I drove my same truck I'd had for 6 years, reliable, a little dusty from the gravel road by my house. and I parked in the lot and walked in like I belonged there. Because I did. Bryce was near the entrance talking to some of his friends, young people in their late 20s in linen blazers and sundresses. He saw me and broke away to shake my hand, which I appreciated. "Thanks for coming," he said, and it sounded genuine. I found Wade and Kristen near the bar. Wade looked good, a light grey suit, Kristen in a cream-coloured dress. Her parents were there, Howard and Beverly Howard in a blazer that probably cost more than my monthly gas bill. Beverly in that practiced, cordial way of wealthy women who have been gracious to lesser people for so many years. It's become reflex. I said hello. There were hellos. Things were fine. Then Kristen said something to her mother in a low voice, and I caught a fragment of it. Something about the truck. Something about hoping the valet hadn't parked it too visible from the terrace. I might have misheard. I was willing to consider that, but then I saw the look that passed between them, that shared glance of women who have a language with each other, and I knew I hadn't misheard. I got a glass of water and found a seat at a table near the edge of the room. About an hour into the event, after the initial toasts but before dinner, Wade came and sat next to me. I thought maybe we were going to have a real conversation. He asked about my knee. I said it was holding up. He told me the winery had good Cabernet if I wanted to upgrade from water. Small talk. Easy, the kind that's fine but doesn't go anywhere. Then his phone buzzed, and he looked at it and frowned slightly, and I could see it was a message from Kristen. He stood up. "Sorry, I need to handle something." I watched him walk across the room toward his wife. I saw them exchange a few words. I saw her glance over at me once, quickly, and then look away. I saw Wade's face do something complicated. He came back and sat down again. His voice was lower this time. "Hey, Dad, I don't want to make a big thing of this, but..." Kristen's mom made a comment about the outfit, and I know that's ridiculous. I know it doesn't matter. But her family is they're particular about these things. And it's Bryce's day, and Kristen, she wanted me to say something. I'm sorry. I hate even bringing it up. I looked at him for a moment. What about the outfit? Just that it's a little casual for the venue. It's a button-down and slacks, Wade. I know, Dad. I'm just the messenger here. He paused. Kristen was thinking, maybe there's a men's store about 10 minutes away. Still open, if you wanted to You want me to leave the party and buy new clothes. I don't want that. Kristen's Your wife wants me to leave the party or grandfather's graduation and buy new clothes because Beverly doesn't like the way I look. He didn't say anything. I took a breath. I looked around the room. At the floral arrangements and the string lights and the open bar and the catering staff moving quietly between tables. I thought about the check I'd written. I thought about the notebook in my kitchen drawer. I thought about $14,000 and Christmas in Hilton Head and a sweet potato casserole that sat in a refrigerator until it was thrown out. I said, "Okay, Wade, I hear you." His shoulders dropped with relief. "Thank you, Dad, I'm not leaving," I said. "But I hear you." His shoulders came back up. "What?" "I'm not leaving the party. I'm not buying new clothes. I'm going to sit here and have my water and watch my grandson celebrate his degree. And at the end of the evening, I'm going to say goodbye and drive home. And at some point after that, I'm going to have a conversation with you about some things I should have said a long time ago. But not tonight. Tonight is for Bryce." Wade looked like he wanted to say something else. He looked at me, then across the room at Kristen, then back at me. He pressed his mouth together and nodded once and left. I stayed through dinner and through the cake and through the second set of toasts. I talked to Bryce for a good 20 minutes. He was moving to Austin for a job, excited about it, had opinions about barbecue that I found genuinely interesting. I talked to one of Wade's old friends from high school who'd come, a guy named Pete who I'd always liked. I drank water and ate the beef medallions, and watched my son avoid my table for the rest of the evening. When I said goodbye to Bryce, he hugged me. Not a handshake, a real hug. I drove home in my truck that apparently offended the view from the terrace, and I sat in my driveway for a little while before going inside. 2 weeks later, I called Wade on a Sunday morning. He answered on the third ring, voice still thick from sleep, even though it was 9:30. "Hey, Dad. You awake?" Yeah, I'm up. I need to tell you some things. You can ask questions after, but let me get through it first." A pause. "Okay." I told him about the sale. I told him the whole story, 31 years, the acquisition, the negotiations, my attorney, the March closing. I told him the number. The silence on the other end of the line had a particular quality to it. Not stunned, exactly. More like recalibrating. I could almost hear him doing the math, rearranging things in his mind, putting pieces together. $9 million, he said finally. 9,140,000 and some change. After everything. Another silence. "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" "I wanted to see who called me," I said. "When you called about Bryce's party, I already knew. When you asked me for money to help fund it, I already knew." He didn't say anything. "I have that notebook," I said. "The one in the kitchen. I've been keeping track for about 4 years. Small loans, big ones. Things I gave you because I'm your father and I wanted to help. But lately I've been trying to figure out if we have a relationship or if we have an arrangement. The party was the last piece of information I needed." "That's Dad. That's not fair. I didn't know about the sale. You can't hold me responsible for not knowing." "No," I said. "I'm not holding you responsible for not knowing. I'm noticing what you did when you didn't know. That's different." The line was quiet for a long time. "I love you," I said. "I want to be clear about that. You are my son, and I love you without conditions. What I'm telling you isn't an ultimatum. I'm not cutting you out of anything, but I am done pretending I didn't notice." He asked me about Kristen, about the party, about the comments she'd made. I told him I'd heard what I heard, and that he was a grown man who had to make his own choices about his marriage and who he was willing to stand up for. I said it without cruelty. I meant it without cruelty, but I said it clearly. "What happens now?" he asked. "That's up to you," I said. "I would like to have a real relationship with my son. The kind where we call each other sometimes just because we feel like talking. Where I know what's going on in your life because you want to tell me, not because you need something. I don't think that's too much to ask for." He was quiet for a moment. "No," he said softly. "It's not." We talked for another hour that morning. Really talked about things that hadn't come up in years, about when he was a kid, about his mother leaving, about things he'd resented and things he'd missed. He cried a little. I didn't, but it was close. There were things said that needed saying on both sides, and neither of us managed them perfectly, but we managed them. Over the following months, things shifted, slowly and imperfectly the way real things do. Wade started calling more. Not every week, but more. Sometimes he called with nothing particular to say, just wanted to know how I was doing, had I watched the game, was my knee still holding up. Kristen remained Kristen cordial, correct, keeping her distance, and I stopped expecting anything different from her. "We're not going to be close. That's fine. She's not my problem to solve." I redid my will with my attorney's help. I set aside a meaningful amount for Wade, enough to matter, enough to reflect that he is my son, and I love him and I want his life to be easier than mine was. I set aside a separate amount for Bryce specifically, because he hugged me at that party and seemed like someone worth knowing. The rest I've been doing good things with. A scholarship at the technical college where I took some courses back in the 90s. A donation to the food bank that helped me through a hard winter when Wade was 15 and the business was nearly under. I am not angry. I want to make sure I'm saying that clearly because the story sounds like it should end in anger. and I understand why. But anger is expensive to maintain, and I've reached the age where I prefer to spend my energy on things that matter more. Last Thanksgiving, Wade drove out to my place. Just him, without Kristen. She was with her family, which was fine by everyone. We cooked together, which we hadn't done since he was a teenager. He made his grandmother's cornbread stuffing from memory. Got it almost right. We watched football and argued about plays and ate too much. When he was getting ready to leave, he stood at the door for a moment with his coat half on, looking at me in a way he hadn't in a long time. Like he was seeing me clearly. Like he was trying to figure out how to say something. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said. "For a lot of it, I know I can't fix all of it. But I'm sorry." I told him I knew he was. I told him to drive safe and call me when he got home. He did. I keep thinking about that truck in the parking lot. The one Kristen didn't want visible from the terrace. That truck has 180,000 miles on it and has never once left me stranded on the side of a road. I'm not sure the same can be said of some people. There's a thing I've come to understand about cause and effect that nobody teaches you when you're young and raising a kid and hoping for the best. Every choice has a direction to it. Every time you treat someone like they're less than they are. Every time you look at a man's jacket and calculate his worth from it. Every time you call your father only when you need something. All of it is going somewhere. The destination just takes a while to arrive. Wade is a decent man at his core. I believe that. But somewhere along the way he let comfort make his choices for him. And comfort is a terrible decision maker. It told him his father's old truck didn't belong in that parking lot. It told him the phone call could wait until there was a reason to make it. It told him that a tight smile and a catered party were enough to substitute for a real relationship. Comfort lies to you in a very pleasant voice, and most people don't figure that out until something forces the issue. What forced the issue in our case was me deciding to stop pretending I hadn't noticed. I want to be clear that this wasn't about the money. I know it sounds like it was about the money. $9 million is a hard number to make sound incidental. But the money was never the point. The point was the notebook in my kitchen drawer. The point was $14,000 given freely to a son who stopped calling unless he needed something. The point was a sweet potato casserole that sat untouched in a refrigerator. The money was just the thing that made the truth impossible to look away from. There's a kind of intelligence that has nothing to do with degrees or business acumen. It's the intelligence of paying attention to people, to patterns, to the difference between what someone says and what they do. I spent 31 years running a business, and the most important skill I developed wasn't managing contracts or bidding jobs. It was reading people clearly and acting on what I saw, rather than what I wished were true. I applied that skill to my clients for 3 decades. I should have applied it to my own family sooner. And then there's the matter of staying, not leaving the party, not swallowing the hurt quietly and driving home early so everyone could be comfortable, sitting in that chair through dinner and cake and toasts, in my navy button-down that offended nobody with any real sense of decency, and being present for my grandson's day regardless of what was being whispered near the bar. That took something. I don't say that to congratulate myself. I say it because I think there's a version of me from 10 years ago who would have made an excuse and left, and that man would have driven home feeling smaller than when he arrived. I didn't want to be that man anymore. The morning after I called Wade and told him everything, Dex came over for coffee like always. I told him how the conversation had gone. He listened the whole way through without interrupting, which is one of his best qualities. When I finished, he said, "How do you feel?" I thought about it for a moment. Like I put something down I'd been carrying for a long time. He nodded like that made perfect sense. I think that's what all of this was really about. Not revenge. I want to be careful about that word. Because what happened between my son and me isn't a revenge story. It's a correction story. Something had drifted badly off course and I finally steered it back. Wade called me on Thanksgiving and said he was sorry. He drove 3 hours and made his grandmother's cornbread stuffing from memory and sat with me through the game. That's not the ending of a revenge story. That's the beginning of something real. The cashier's check I mentioned at the start, the one folded in my jacket pocket that day, was made out to Bryce, his graduation gift from his grandfather. I gave it to him quietly before I left, away from the terrace and the string lights and everything else. He looked at the amount and looked at me and didn't quite know what to say. I told him to use it well. He said he would. I believe him.